So just to briefly give you a little bit of the history of Palazzo Parisio and how we got into this venture. The house belonged to my great-grandfather, who in Malta was the first merchant banker way back in 1875. In fact, he created Scicluna's Bank. And this was one of his homes, actually, a country, considered his country lodge, because really and truly, his main residence was in town, as we say, downtown, and it was called Dragonara Palace, which is still here today. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it has become the Casino of Malta, and still lives today. It's a huge property, absolutely beautiful, but more or less government run today. As for Palazzo Parisio, it remained in the family. My great-grandfather was brought up in this house, and actually he built the house together with his friend Charlie Strickland at the time, and he decided that this would be his residence, let's say, up in the country. And so he had this property, which he bought from an Italian gentleman called Mr. Parisio. And in fact, there are two Palazzo Parisios in Malta. One which is possibly more famous than ours, because today it is the Foreign Office in Valletta. It's a beautiful building which was built by the same architect, an Italian architect named Carlo Sada. And sometimes that Palazzo Parisio is more famous than ours, because it is said that Napoleon on his way to Egypt actually resided there for a couple of days in Valletta. And basically, so Palazzo Parisio in Valletta is much more famous than this one here in Nasha. However, it was my great-grandfather's residence. And then basically, when he died, it was left very much closed. And he left a son, a little boy of 8 years old, who was then became the Marquis Scicluna, and therefore the banker who took over from my great-grandfather. And he inherited this house, but did never live here really and truly, because he lived in Dragonara in town. So basically what happened was that it was closed, and every now and again he would rent, not even rent it, but people would tell him, you know, oh, Marcus, could my daughter get married there? Could we do this? Could we do that? And he would always obviously say yes. And basically that's how we came into doing events and weddings and opening it up to the public. But on a very small scale, until about 20 years ago, I decided to come back to Malta, because I have never lived in Malta except from when I was a child, because I lived practically all my life in France, Paris. Then when I got married to an Italian, I lived in Italy for many years. And one fine day, I decided I should go back to Malta and see what I was going to do with this property here in Malta, which was virtually closed. So I had always been used to working, and I thought, well, let me do something in Malta. I just cannot sit here and socialize. So I'm going to open up the palace. This is how it started. And how could I do that was that I used to be quite a good cook, and I used to love baking cakes. And I thought, okay, I'm going to open to tourists, the few that came, And then as they would come all the way up to this little village, Nachar, I would be able to offer them a piece of cake and a cup of tea and some refreshments, you know. So all by my little self, I got together a few tables and chairs. This sounds terribly awful, but still, it's the truth. I rigged up a kitchen in the palace, which was absolute doom and gloom. And, you know, I was literally in the back of beyond, and I started doing this. I had a friend, my girlfriend, who used to take people on tour around the palazzo. And basically, little by little, it grew and grew. And here I am today, 20 years later, with what can I say?
A fairly large operation.
A fairly large operation, which, you know, and a garden that had to be totally restored, refurbished, the house itself, which is ongoing, an ongoing restoration, if I can say. And here we are today, you know, with 10 people in the kitchen, 40 people working for us, and us two girls.
100 weddings a year, and
a fully fledged restaurant, museum. I don't say the museum, I mean, we do 30,000, we used to do last year 30,000
visitors a year. Yeah.
Visitors a year. And well, I've spent these last years inventing what I can do to bring the public in, and it is a Maltese heritage home. And my daughter and I, well, we just plod along, try our very best, and of course, you know, do what everyone else does, probably on a lesser scale, but still.
Yes, definitely on a smaller scale.
And then, of course, now we are closed. We were hit like everyone else by the pandemic. So
we've done our best to, like everybody else, reinvent ourselves in the best way we can. So providing takeaway, bottling of 600 liters of olive oil and selling it.
Making marmalade
as well.
Baking cakes, selling them, baking bread. And, you know, sort of the Baroness's homemade bread, and packing it up and gift wrapping it and sending it to clients. You name it, we do it. I mean, we stick in there and try our best and hope to reopen very soon, because we're full of passion and enthusiasm. And now Justine is the new generation.
Yes.
And she has to take over, and she's got lots of ideas. I mean, and here we go, we're ready to.
I mean, our next, we're currently obviously working under lockdown, so we are trying to reach out to our community in a different way. So we've gone onto the street and opened a little side door where we can still be sort of present for the local community, but especially our village, because usually the village people feel quite
bewildered,
afraid of even coming anywhere near the building. And so the fact that actually we've opened up onto the street has really made a huge difference and has sort of connected us with our closer community. So we're very happy about that. What else have we been doing? Doing quite a lot, really. Naturally, all our events and all our projects have been put on hold, and weddings postponed like everybody else. But we're quite hopeful that things will sort of eventually, you know, we'll be back in business, hopefully very soon. In the meantime, we're working on a project of a boutique hotel. We'll be hopefully sort of adding to the experience of the palace,
A luxury guest
a luxury
house.
guest house of 16 rooms where people can stay. So that's ongoing at the moment. Yes, cultural hub, absolutely. Sorry, I'm following this. We're not very good at presentations, I'm afraid. We have, we're starting to organize, we've already started, but we're planning to become more of a cultural hub and inviting musicians and theatre companies to sort of make the place live a little bit, because for the last few years we've been concentrating mainly on our
banqueting and
events and restaurant operation, and we think that
with the pandemic
it opens up also an opportunity to make the place a little bit more exciting locally.
And people are, just need to go places and do something, because at least here on our little island, it's limited and we're all terribly social. And so opening up the garden has really given people the opportunity to sort of enjoy the palazzo and its gardens, and it's really like a cultural club in a certain way.
It is. It's a community.
It's a community.
What else can we say?
Nothing.
Really and truly, it's I mean, we don't see it so much as a, how do you call it, as a sort of historic building. It's our home, so we've opened it up. It's almost like we've extended our home beyond the garden, so it becomes one big home, really. So although it is a business, obviously, and it's a very challenging business, and also we don't get any help from
any grants, any help
from the government. So any restoration or anything that we do is
all from our own pocket, no subsidies whatsoever.
So it's tough. It's
challenging.
Tough. It's challenging. Tough. We own the property with the other side of the family who are involved in other businesses. So it's just me and my mother, and we press on.
Yes,
practically. Try and do our best. Really. Don't know. Do you have anything else to add? I'm not quite sure.
Hello, are you there?
Is anybody there?
Is anyone there?
Thank you. This is really wonderful, and I particularly love the idea that you combine the concerts. You gave opportunities to artists who had no employment during the pandemic. You were live streaming it on Facebook. You combine it with the delivery service. I mean, all of this was really fantastic and really inspirational. So